Those are practical tools that I felt, people need, and I needed them to actually get from A to B, to get from victim mode to higher self mode. Because if we don't have the practical tools, we can wish ourselves there all day long. But as soon as our attention goes away and goes into the world and goes maybe into, we're, let's say, pressed for time and we're rushing, throwing everything in. So we need to learn some metaphysical tools to protect our energy, to create a radiating field. And when we have that, when we are protected, we have a radiating field, then we're constantly giving from the overflow.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome, and some of you, welcome back to Take Back Your Mind. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center and the host of Take Back Your Mind, the podcast in which we get to dive deeply into the awareness that we are awareness and that we could have sovereignty over our mind. We're not our minds, but we have one. And we can begin to allow for our mind to not be hijacked by the world, fear, doubt, worry, anxiety, anxiousness, doubt. We can actually take it back. So I have wonderful conversations with individuals that are doing just that in their own unique way. So today, I have a friend of mine, Ariya Lorenz. She's the author and founder of Higher Self-Mastery. Her mission? To help people connect to their higher selves, to discover their soul's purpose, and the exact steps on how to live it. With over 2 decades of dedicated service, she's impacted well over 20,000 lives across 5 continents. Recognized as the #1 spiritual guide on Soulvana and a celebrated speaker on Mindvalley Pro. Ariya's workshops were voted the top choice on Lifebook in 2023. From guiding celebrities, athletes, and business executives and igniting breakthroughs in their lives to passionately uplifting individuals from all walks of life, Ariya is committed to propelling everyone towards their highest level of health, wealth, and fulfillment by facilitating a profound connection with their higher self. You hear me speak about that a lot, the higher self. And so listen, Ariya, welcome to Take Back Your Mind.
Thank you so much, Reverend Michael. So grateful to be here. Blessings to everyone.
Absolutely. Listen, tell us a little bit about your background, your origin story, as to how you even came into this powerful way that you operate with people.
Well, thanks for asking. I grew up aware, and I actually was aware as a baby of the world and energies around us, and really I thought everybody is aware, and I remember everything from basically birth on. And I was born into a wonderful family of absolute unconditional love. And very early on, I was initiated with death and with the experience of death. My father died when I was 2. And this was a new thing for me because I was in oneness, right? And I was knowing of how it feels to be in oneness. But being on the planet, you're actually experiencing contrast, you're experiencing differences. And to experience how death feels in a body was very dark. It was very difficult, because it felt like a real disconnect. And I couldn't really fathom how I could be disconnected from something I'm so one with. It took me a long time to work with that. And I got a lot of initiations growing up with death. Friends, grandparents died early on, lots of early deaths. And I ended up having a boyfriend that I was absolutely unconditionally in love with. And he died in a car accident when I was 18. So at that moment, I thought, you know what? This world, this life, there is no good God. This is a bad God. This is a bad situation. And you know what? I'm not going to play it anymore. And I went from being this being of light and sort of an angelic energy and growing up with the angels and with Jesus into a really dark phase. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to negate all of that. There's probably a really dark force that's actually laughing at us, and it finds it very funny when we think there's something positive, or when we strive for positivity or hope. And I decided I'm not going to feed that anymore. I'm not going to give him any positive emotions anymore. He's not going to get anything from me. And so I went into that.
You detached yourself. You became detached.
I came detached, yeah. And really went into that dark energy and was completely depressed, clinically depressed, really. And I lost all my friends. Everybody, my best friend who stuck with me through all of that, she ended up saying, you know what, I cannot visit you anymore. You are so negative. I just can't stand it. And I just thought, there's nothing positive out there. So I'm just going to be what is the reality. And after a while, I started to draw all these pictures, and I was in contact with my higher self through art, but I wasn't aware of that. And there was this light that constantly came streaming in. And I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Let me look at this. I've been practicing this negativity to defy, the force that gives us these negative experiences in order to not be hurt anymore.
Right.
Now, if somebody would die right now in my life, would I be less sad? And I realized, oh no, I would be just as devastated. Only problem is I'm not living my life. I'm not living anything. I'm just basically dead. And I was too depressed to kill myself, And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to make an experiment. Since this is not working, and the chances are 50-50 that the God that's out there is good or the God is bad, or there's no God is the same, good or bad, right? So 50% is that life is good. 50% is life is bad. So, and I've lived life is bad, and so far it's not giving me anything that's worthwhile living for or dying for. So I'm going to make an experiment. I'm going to go with the positive. I'm going to say life is good, God is good, and I'm going to see what happens. I'm not believing either. I'm just going to try it. And I stepped out of that, and I decided I'm going to attempt or intend that everything's positive. And as I'm thinking that and I'm living it, I'm starting to have these positive experiences. My friends come back. I feel better. I'm starting to have a better life. And I'm realizing, wait a minute, I'm still going to be as sad if somebody dies as I was before. But I'm living at least until that happens. And I'm actually enjoying life with them. So I'm honoring them. So this was working. And then I came to a meditation retreat. And that was called The Journey to Your Own Heart. And I, at the time, couldn't feel my heart. And I remember as a child, I was always totally in touch with my heart. And I'm like, I don't even know if I have a heart, because I was so detached from all that was alive in me. And I was just sort of trying it on right now, but I wasn't really embodying it yet. So I went to this retreat and we did a meditation, and the lady did 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, as I was sitting there meditating, I felt my oneness with God again. It wasn't immediate. It was just, oh my God, I'm home. I'm home. And as I'm feeling this, I don't want the meditation to end. And of course, it ended after 5 minutes, and I talked into 20 minutes, and eventually we did 20 minutes as a group. And every time I went into meditation, I was in oneness. And every time I came out of meditation, I was in this extreme experience here on planet Earth. And I finally learned to actually contact my higher self. That part of me that's not incarnated, that's not having this earthly experience, but that part that's actually always one with the divine, that's always there, that's sort of feeding this life and basically having an experience here, but not being of this experience.
Just stop for a second because I want to get into the higher self, but I want to basically let the audience know what you just said.
Yeah.
When you were born, you had a dynamic field of being in oneness. It was very natural to you, and you were very aware, and the angelic presence was real to you. The love was real, all of that. And then when these deaths occurred, it allowed you to become detached from that. You were angry. You were upset that these people died, your boyfriend, your dad. That gave you an experience of contrast between that which is real and eternal and light and love, and then your own detachment from it based on the death. You experience the sense of separation.
Yeah.
And then you made a choice. You know what? I've tried being in the darkness. That didn't work. I'm going to try being in the affirmative again. And from there, you began to feel your connection again. Things began to perk up. Your friends came back. And then you went to this retreat. And in this retreat, there was a meditation in which you came back to yourself again. Am I describing that journey right?
Perfectly.
Yeah. Which I think you are. I wanted to bring that up because I think many people lose their childhood based on abuse, based on having to move all the time, based on not being liked, or whatever the case may be. And they have to develop like a coping mechanisms to defend themselves. And so they become cynical, they become jaded, until some way, shape, form, or another, they're able to find their way back to themselves, which is what you did. Mm-hmm. So that's a great description for anyone listening. Now, let's get into the higher self. You were beginning to describe the higher self. How would you describe the higher self in relationship to you? And what did you discover when you came back to yourself?
Yeah, well, I discovered that because I learned from the higher self. At first, I got in touch with the higher self in order to learn everything what I'm going to say now, in order to start to make sense of everything, right? Which was very useful. But the higher self itself, as I experience it, it could be called the soul. It could be called, your superconscious. It's really the part in us that is has access to the all-knowing field. Mm-hmm. That is a higher vibration, and that high vibration cannot be in a body because you have to be in a lower vibration in order to be in a physical body. But it's basically our higher version when we're out of the body, as we are directly connected to God. Mm-hmm. So vibrationally speaking, we can't be merging with God easily because we would be out of the body. But we have a higher self, and the higher self is sort of vibrationally speaking in between God and us, as I understand it. And we can amp up our vibration high enough, going above to beyond conditional love into unconditional love. And when we're in unconditional love vibrationally, we're actually at the lowest vibration that the higher self can operate. So now we are able to be in conscious connection with the higher self. And mm-hmm. the self then has, of course, access to everything, knows everything of our past, of our future, of our current state, but also of everybody else's past, future, and current state, because it knows everything. And therefore, if we have conscious access to the higher self, we can then ask all the questions about our own purpose and about how we can live our purpose and how we can live in relation to others, so we're a beneficial presence on the planet.
Absolutely. This is beautiful. So the way I see it, and I think we're vibing on the same frequency here, is that your higher self is actually the real you.
Thank you.
And that the body temple can only vibrate to a certain level. If you understand David Hawkins' work, then the vibration can't go past 1,000. The body can't even hold that much. And so when you look at some of the avatars who have walked the planet, they were vibrating at 600, 540, 7, 8, 9, 1,000. But beyond that, you can't. That's the higher self is not bound by the body. So the higher self's frequency going even into the archangel realm is thousands. That's our real self. And then this is how we experience the earth. This is the avatar to have a direct experience into 3 dimensions and the physicality of being human and all the rich stuff that it brings is what I'm saying and how I'm defining it. Is that corresponding to what you're saying?
Big time. Beautifully said. You always have the best words. I always listen to you Sunday service and everything because you are literally speaking from the higher self. And it's just exactly what I'm hearing as well. But the way you put it into words is just divine. Perfect.
Yeah. I'd like people to know that oftentimes they are trying to create or manifest a great life, but they're trying to manifest it from their personality. They're trying to manifest it from the mundane human experience. It is not the full measure of who you are. And so you assist people in actually tapping into the higher self and making choices and decisions and, and help create a level of soul fulfillment. This is what you do for people. Now, you help people understand the energy around us and how to use it, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So break that down for a bit, or anything else that kind of emerges through you by question I just asked.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, from contacting my higher self, I learned 2 things. The first thing I learned when I went up there to actually see my higher self and talk with it is that I am not the body, what you said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not my emotions. I'm not even this life experience. I'm just having this experience. It's almost as if I was watching a movie. And I can be in that movie as much as I want. I can be fully in it and experiencing all the emotions and everything for the fun of it. Or I could step out of it and watch it from the distance and see, okay, that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
And so I learned that. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So what the next thing is that I learned is I can direct the movie. Because if I know that, well, then I can actually make choices and changes. And the first thing the higher self showed me is it said, look at you right now. And you're in your life and you're thinking you're not good enough. And I saw myself shrinking and I got smaller and smaller and smaller. I was tiny. And I said, what do I do now? And the higher self said, what do you think? And I'm like, I thought myself bigger. I thought I'm bigger, I'm good, I'm beautiful. And I raised, I grew. And the higher self said, this is what your thoughts do. Your thoughts create your reality that tangible. You just don't see it when you're in the body because it takes longer until it actually outpictures. Because of that, you need to know how to use your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And you can direct your story, your life with your mind. Well, then I asked, okay, well, if it's my mind only, can I just sit on the sofa and just think? And then I got shown how manifestation actually works.
Mm-hmm. Before you go there, because I want to kind of revisit what you just said, because sometimes, because you said you were able to touch the higher mind, you can see that you're not the experience. You're not the experience, but you're having an experience, and you can see it from a larger picture and look at it and say, oh, that's interesting, or you can be totally immersed in it. And so the example I use sometimes is that you can go to a movie theater and you can absolutely be totally involved in what the writer and the director and their actors are doing. It may be a horror movie, maybe a comedy, it may be drama, suspense, and you can get so into it that the emotions are flowing through your body and there's this, oh my God, don't open that door, you're going to get kidnapped, or whatever the case be. Or you can pull back and just watch the movie without getting totally involved. I mean, if we get totally involved, sometimes we'll say, well, that was a good movie. If we can't get totally involved, we say, that movie was okay. But it's something to that effect, right? It's like you're having this experience and you can be really involved and get caught up in it and forget yourself, or you can watch it from a distance and say, that's interesting. You can have like a kind of a dispassionate compassion about what's going on, or you can get so lost in it that you forget yourself. Is that a good way of describing what you just said?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And when you know that, you can also see that if you're fully involved with it, you may have the experience fully, but it's sort of a selfish situation. either good for you or not good for you, but you're not really impacting anybody else in a positive way because you're completely. And if you're actually not caught, if you're watching from the outside, you have a possibility to impact other people in a positive way, the world in a positive way, with directing your energy. And you basically become an instrument. Whereas when you're completely caught, you're just a participant.
Yeah. You're reminding me of something. I want to get to your point about manifestation, but I remember when the pandemic was hit and everybody was hypnotized by what the government was saying. And they got totally involved in it to the point that they lost themselves. And I can remember Agape saying, you need to listen to your soul. You need to listen to your higher self. These government officials are not doctors. You know what I mean? They in some cases, don't even have your best interests at hand, And I remember I got criticized by that a little bit because I was not telling people to follow what the government was saying. I wasn't telling people, I wasn't giving any suggestions other than to listen to your own soul, go to your higher self, learn how to pay attention to what your higher self wants you to do. Don't listen to a president. Don't listen to a governor. Don't listen to a councilman. Listen to your higher self. I call that nefarious hypnotism, where other forces are trying to, and this happens obviously with gross consumerism and people trying to snatch your attention to make you do things that aren't for your highest and benefit. You're saying people can actually be in contact with their higher self and get guidance and wisdom in a language and in a way that they can understand. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. In a language that they can understand. Right. And that's where the energy comes in and the manifestation, because in order to be able to understand it, we need to really work with our own vibration. We need to bring our vibration up. What does that mean? Well, it means we first need to master, right? We need to master energy. So when I was depressed, I was so low in energy, I couldn't even lift my arm. It was hard to lift my arm. Well, you can be sure that I didn't do much good for the world or for myself in that state. Yeah. And if you had told me, okay, go to your higher self and get some input on what your soul purpose is, I would have said, forget it. I just want to get somebody to lift my arm. Yeah. So we first need to get into the energy and really understand energy and learn how to move energy and learn how to have more than enough energy in this physical body. Because we're not only getting energy from food, it's actually a very slow form of getting energy because it has to be digested and it uses up energy. So we can literally learn how to master energy and draw energy into our body on a regular basis every day, keep our energy body clean and clear it every day. And then we have an overflow.
I like that, the overflow. I like the overflow part. Well, give them a little technique on how they can do that. How they can, tap in and master that energy. I mean, obviously, this is not a class. We're just having a dialogue, a conversation. But you just said something very profound.
Yeah, let's do it right.
People can actually tap in and actually shift some energy in their life. Right.
Right. That's right. And so we can do a quick exercise together and just remember when you're listening to me right now, that where your attention goes, the energy flows. So if you're putting your attention on something, energy will flow there, right? And so as we're doing this, we're using this principle. We're also using a principle where the energy is actually held in the image of something. So if you're thinking of let's say a beach that you were on vacation, or you're thinking of a power place or a tree, something that's special to you, you're actually drawing that energy from that place to you because place has the energy. Your thoughts direct your attention directs the energy, and the energy comes to you. Okay? So we're using our imagination right now in this because we don't have a physical tree here or something, but I want to do a recharge for us. And the recharge can happen on a tree, on an ocean, on a mountain, or another power place on the planet. So if you were at that actual tree, ocean, or mountain, you could do it right there. but we're probably all in our living rooms right now or in the car or wherever we are. If you're in the car, stop the car and we'll do it real quick together. Yeah, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. I have more questions, but I want you to do it. I want people to actually, part of my role is to help people take back their mind and embrace their heart and to actually have a level of mastery about changing their experience of reality. So it's not just intellectually becoming a philosopher. It's actually becoming a practitioner. Yeah. So you're going to help with that right now.
Reverend Michael. Okay, close your eyes for a moment and see yourself, or imagine it, or just intend it. So either one is good enough. Some people can't really visualize well. If you're not a visualizer, you just intend yourself at a beautiful place in nature that has a lot of energy. As I mentioned, it could be a tree, a mountain, an ocean, or any other place. Place yourself there with your intention and or imagination. Now become aware of their surroundings. You may feel some wind, or just imagine that wind on your skin and your hair. If you're at a tree, you feel like the rind of the tree, the bark. And you place your hands towards the object you're going to recharge from. If it's a mountain, you just place your hands in the direction of the mountain or the ocean. And if it's a tree, you just place your hands on the bark of the tree. Just take some moments and visualize or intend that. Good. Now we're going to ask. We're going to say, dear tree or mountain or whatever you're at, dear, follow my voice, just say that, dear, and then say where you're at. Please give me from your overflow of energy. And now draw that energy in. This is giving you now from its overflow. So you're not depleting the field in front of you. You're receiving from the field. Draw it in with your hands. Imagine, visualize, or allow it to come into your hands, from the hands into your whole body. Filling your body up with energy. You can use your breath to draw it in. When you breathe out, let it distribute in your body. Breathe in, breathing in that energy more. Breathe out, distribute it in your body. And continue to do this in your own rhythm for a few moments. Let it fill all your chakras, your organs, every part of your body. And when you feel it, you're filled to overflowing. You say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go. Good. Now, how do you feel? Check in with yourself. You feel a little bit more alert, a little bit more awake.
Good. You know what? That was a quick. That was beautiful. You know what? Where I went to was, I used to work many years ago for the mayor of Los Angeles. I worked for Tom Bradley. I ran the senior citizen department in the 8th Councilmanic District. And I would leave City Hall. I would drive to the beach. I would take off my suit top, my shirt, and my tie, and I would go to a power spot, and I would stand in front of the ocean. And I would do pranayama. I would do this deep breathing, and I would just feel the overflow. I would become oceanic, really big, and become filled with the power of the ocean. And I would say, when I am in my dharma, when I'm doing what I'm called to do by the universe, this is how it's going to feel. And I would feel it right now. And then as the years went on, and I left that position, had a couple of other positions, and ended up working at a prayer ministry, becoming the director of a prayer ministry that ultimately founded Agape International, that's how I feel. When I teach, when I counsel, when I speak, I feel bigger now than I did when I was in front of the ocean. So that took me right back to standing on those rocks and becoming recharged. Very powerful.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's a small exercise, and yet we can do this in our physical bodies and make use of the actual energy around us that's invisible. So we can sort of bridge the worlds that way when we start to learn how to master energy, right? And what you said, I love that, because it takes us into the manifestation that we touched on earlier, that, when you are using, and when you have enough energy, you want to do something with the energy. You want to end up, really making a difference in your own life, and then hopefully also in the world. And that's manifesting. You need to learn how to manifest. One needs to learn how to manifest. But there's a form of manifestation that goes beyond that mundane, just getting something and then finding out I probably didn't need it, or it wasn't the right thing, or it's overwhelming. And that's the form where you're actually manifesting what you need to become from your soul.
You're speaking my language.
And that's what you did at the ocean. When you're at the ocean, you're like, when I'm in my Dharma, I am going to feel like this because I let the ocean become me. I let the bigger part that's coming through me come through me so strongly that I feel myself way bigger and I have more energy available, because it's not only me anymore. It's actually the bigger part that wants to come through me that I'm feeling.
Right.
And so you're making room for that, right?
Right. So when a person is into this moment of recharge, they can say something like, the overflow is moving through my body temple and my body is healed right now. Or the overflow is moving through me and all of my needs are met. The overflow is moving through me and the individual that I'm praying for is now feeling the overflow and right actions occurring in their life. You can direct that energy into the realm of manifestation.
Yes. And specifically, if you're working with an overflow, because now you have so much available. If you do that just on your own and sitting on the sofa, you need your own energy, you may become depleted. But if you're actually locking yourself into something really big, like a power place in nature, you have infinite energy available. And you can do the same then by going one step higher and actually tapping into your higher self.
I knew you were going there. Yeah. So you start off with nature. Yeah. A tree, the ground, the earth, the ocean, and then you extend yourself into your higher self, your real self, your authentic self, your eternal self, and actually go direct to the presence that's revealing itself as your higher self. Yes? Yeah. Absolutely. So basically, we're giving people inner authority to come out of being a victim and to actually tap into the overflow of energy and change the trajectory of their life.
Yes. And I've noticed when I was working as a healer, so when I came out of this whole depression and I started contacting my higher self, I got led to using energy for others so I could heal. Mm-hmm. That's how it started. And when I came out of being a healer, I realized that I'm actually not helping people very well by just being a healer, because we're not helping people out of their victim state. They say, heal me. You do it for me.
Right.
And every time somebody had to come back and come back and come back, I realized what I really need to do with them is I need to help them understand what their purpose is in life. Right. What they want to do here. And once they're tapped into what they need to do on the planet, they actually heal. The resources come. Everything they need, the abundance comes, the health, the wealth, the relationships come. Everything just floods into their direction, because God wants to feed you when you're on your purpose, because God wants you to fulfill your purpose.
Right. And your purpose is to reflect your higher self according to your unique pattern.
Exactly.
This is beautiful, because it's real what you're saying because it's simple. When it gets too complicated, it may not be totally authentic, because a lot of times people want to make things very complicated and complex, but actually going into the overflow of however you get there, and then extending yourself to your higher self, that presence of love and of God and of joy. It's simple, but it has to be practiced.
Yeah.
It has to be done on a regular basis so that you get used to hanging in the higher frequency no matter what and regardless. So that becomes where you live from.
Yeah. Yeah.
It becomes where you live from. It's the answer to everything.
It's the answer. And I love that you say it's where you live from, because people will start by using energy, and then they use energy in their favor, and they sort of fill themselves up with energy. Now it goes through them, but eventually it'll just be them as the energy. You become one with it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And those
because you are one with it, but you just have static on the line.
Right. And you need to basically learn how to live that in the physical body. And I had to learn that because being in the physical body was so far away from where I knew it could go that I'm like, wait a minute, there must be a bridge. There must be something of how we can get the body up there. And through asking my higher self, and I decided I'm not going to read anything for minimum 3 years because I don't have anybody's input. I want to learn from my higher self purely. And once I'm done with that, then I'm other people's stuff, right?
I laugh because I did that for a long period of time in my life. When I first awoke many years ago, I could tell if I picked up a book, I can tell whether they were talking about it or talking from it. And there was long periods of time where I just wouldn't read anything. I'd just go direct. And then I'd read later and I could validate what was true in a book and what was somebody's opinion or something that they read, because a lot of books shouldn't be written, but we won't get into that. But yeah.
And I just didn't want my mind to also fiddle in there and say, oh, I know, because the more my mind knows, the harder it is to actually listen, right? And I still do it. It's 20 years now, and I'm still not reading much, So I'll open a book, and I know exactly where I need to be, and I read whatever I need to read, and then I'll take it to the higher self. I use books as cues, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you do something similar because you're the channel, right?
Yeah, you're teaching people, how to activate, how to become activated energy pockets for the divine.
That's it. Yeah, oh my God, you worded it so beautifully.
It's very, very, very powerful.
That's what became my mission. My mission is now really to help people connect to their higher selves so they can become these activated pockets of the divine. I love that word. I love the sentence.
Yeah.
Because once you're activated, it's like a seed. You can give people fruit and give them fruit and feed them or they feed you. It's always a one-way street. Once the fruit is eaten, that's it. You have to find a new one. But when you actually work with the seeds and you say, okay, what is your seed? Where does it need to be placed? How do you need to grow? And then you plant it together with the person or help them see where they need to plant it for themselves. Then, everything grows. The whole tree grows, and so many fruits will be shared and enjoyed because then we're in a circular motion. There's no more linear giving, and then there's actually a circulation, right? A torus energy field, really, what's being created.
Yeah.
And that's where the joy is. That's where then all of a sudden that separation that I experienced at the time was mended when I could actually feel not only can I tap into my higher self and therefore into my God mission,
yes,
and know how to live it, I can actually bring this so much into this life that every day I'm bridging both worlds. I'm bringing heaven to earth.
Yes, it's beautiful.
That's where the fulfillment lies.
Yeah. Let me ask you, I have a couple more questions I think would be helpful to those tuning in. Now, one of the things you teach and know is that being hypersensitive is not a bad thing. Well, take that and run with that.
Yeah. Well,
it's not a curse. It's not a curse.
Not a curse. It's not a curse. People think when they're hypersensitive that that it's a problem and that they need to protect themselves, and they need to be in either environments where they're not being inundated with things that are harmful to them or that are hurting them, or they need to become really harsh. And a lot of people that are hypersensitive, they become very harsh. They become judgmental and say, not you, this, not that. And, all of a sudden they're out of their vortex. But why is that? Because what they only need to know is when we're hypersensitive, we need to understand how to direct and protect our energy.
Mm-hmm.
And hypersensitivity often means that we're taking in energies like a sponge from the outside world. And then we need to process them inside. And that processing is a gruesome process. And it sometimes creates resentment because it's not fun and it hurts and it sometimes creates illness. So instead, we need to learn how to master our energy in the right way. And what I like to share, what I've received from the higher self, is that you need to create a radiating field.
Exactly what I teach. Exactly. That you got it.
Perfect. I got confirmation from my chief, Reverend Michael. Thank you.
That's it. I remember a number of years ago, I was visiting a woman in the hospital at Kaiser over on Sunset Boulevard. And she was, her last days of being on the planet, and she wanted to see me. And I went in and I prayed, and we had some beautiful conversation, but my body was tired. And so as I was leaving, instead of taking the elevator, I walked down the stairs, and by the time I got downstairs, I just felt all this depression on me and all this, even suicidal thoughts. So I picked up the energy from the people that were in the cancer ward. And I was standing on Sunset Boulevard, and there was a bus to my left. And I thought, if I threw myself in front of this bus just right, I could take myself out of here. And then I caught myself. I said, this isn't my thought. And I realized I picked up all this energy. And from that moment on, I learned how to radiate energy rather than to pick up energy. Like when I walk into a room, I'm not trying to pick up the energy of the room. I walk into a room and radiate peace or love or harmony. Doesn't mean I don't have intuitive skills to pick up things, but I'm uninterested.
Yes.
So when you talk about developing a radiation field, that is your protection.
Exactly. And those are practical tools that I felt, people need, and I needed them to actually get from A to B, to get from victim mode to higher self mode. Because if we don't have the practical tools, we can wish ourselves there all day long. But as soon as our attention goes away and goes into the world and goes maybe into, we're, let's say, pressed for time and we're rushing, throwing everything in. So we need to learn some metaphysical tools to protect our energy, to create a radiating field. And when we have that, when we are protected, we have a radiating field, then we're constantly giving from the overflow, because that radiating field gets plugged in from above and below. And people can go to my website. There's a meditation called 3-Heart Meditation. It's a free part on the website. And it teaches you how to actually tap into the source of energy below in the heart of the planet and above God's source, and draw it into your heart. That's why I call it heart. And out of that, you create a radiating energy field where you're giving to the world nonstop, but you're not giving directional. It's omnidirectional. And therefore, it feeds everyone. And yet you're being fed from the best sources.
Right.
Right?
You're being fed from the overflow source, not from your little self.
Exactly.
So you're not going to get burnt out, because it's not the little personality self that's trying to give all this energy. It's actually you're living from the overflow that you've just described. And we see that with people in life sometimes when they become extemporaneous, when they're in sports or they're in medicine or something else is operating through them. It's still them. I remember reading a testimony of a medical doctor whose specialty was heart surgery on infants. So it's very meticulous because the heart is very small. And one day before doing his surgery, he prayed, and he just felt connected to this overflowing energy. And when he went into surgery, the surgery took hours. And the nurses were patting him down and perspiration. And he completed the surgery without a break. And it was very successful. And he talks about the fact that to him, the surgery only lasted a few moments, even though in this dimension, it was the number of hours that it took. But when he prayed, he opened himself up to the higher overflow source that did the surgery through him. So we were able to see people. Most of the time people see it in sports or orators or musicians, things like that. But we all have that capacity. If we sometimes it's accidental. Sometimes it's accidental alignment, but you're basically teaching people how to live from this frame.
Correct. And we have literal practical steps how to get there. So I call what you just shared, I call this the higher self lifestyle. Actually in flow mode. You're in flow, then turn on, you're completely connected to the divine, and you're being yourself through life instead of doing yourself through life. You're literally tapping into that source at all times. And it's a practice. Like you said earlier, it takes practice, and there are certain things that need to be done every day. And I like to plug them into activities that we do anyway, like drinking a cup of coffee or sleeping or going into the car. So things that we're doing anyway, we can plug certain metaphysical tools and practices into those activities in order to make them our vibrational, literally raising our vibration nonstop. And when we are at a higher level, like you mentioned, David Hawkins' work, he measures vibration. And when we are at a vibration that's above 350, between 350 and 500, we're operating on gratitude and unconditional love. We're always really receptive to the field from the higher self, and we are also able to judge from that vantage point, which means we're wise and we're not ego active and trying to get, through something or get our own will. And later we feel depleted, which is so frustrating because nobody really wants that. It's just how we've learned to live, try to get it and then be happy. But it doesn't work that way. It only works that way to say, try to connect, try to align to what's really trying to happen through you, and then allow it to happen. And as you're in that allowing, you need to learn how to be up on that allowing level. But when you are there, everything feels so much better. There's real bliss there. There's real joy there. And even then, later coming back to my story when I had all these deaths, my best friend died, my family members, I had so many deaths. When my mom finally died when I was 22, I actually had an experience of oneness with her. Instead of having that experience of that total disconnect and that agony of that pain when you feel disconnected from your source, I had the opposite. You had a oneness with the divine, so we can get there.
Yes. You had a direct experience that there's no such thing as death, that she just took off her wearables. She took off her wearable body and continued to live, and you had a direct a sense of oneness with her. That's beautiful. And it shows the whole evolution of your own being, from all those deaths, you dejecting life and becoming angry and then coming back to yourself, to now having a direct encounter with life after life after life, many lifetimes in the expression of the one life. That's very powerful, very powerful. Let me ask you this, I think you use this word, but, breakthroughs, where do breakthroughs actually come from? What happens when a person has a breakthrough? What's going on there?
Yeah. Well, it's really that. A breakthrough is not something you can make happen. People try to do this. Like, I work with athletes and they say, I want to win the gold medal. Yes, you can, if you're meant to win the gold medal. And you're probably meant to win that gold medal, because otherwise you wouldn't be in the position of being that athlete and being totally passionate about it. So people are passionate about something. That's already a good starting point. But trying to make it happen will not get you there. It'll just break things. That's the break, not a breakthrough, right?
Right. I like that.
So instead, a breakthrough is where we are literally letting go of something that's hindering us from being our next level, from being, right? So there's something inside of us that we haven't allowed to be shed yet or to be left behind. That's hindering us from going to the next level. That's the breakthrough. It's like, I love the example of the chicken and the egg, or, and I think I heard you say that.
Yes,
And
I used to be one of my great metaphors over the years.
yeah. Do you want to share that? Because I love how you brought it.
Well, one of the things that I share is when the chicken is in the egg, all of its needs are met. It has a protective shell to protect it while it's growing. And after a while, as it grows, it pollutes its environment. And if the chicken were to have human consciousness, the chicken might say, please, God, give me a bigger egg. But the evolutionary energy within the chicken begins to make it peck. And when it pecks, that world falls apart and it comes into a different world, not a bigger egg, but a totally different world. The breakthrough is to a different frequency, a greater world. And oftentimes what you're saying, that people are trying to get a bigger egg, trying to get something in the world that's going to make them happy, when in fact, life is inviting them to go to the higher self. It's inviting them to go to a different world, of which your needs will be met. But the happiness is coming from being in a different world. Thank you for asking me to share that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love how you explain it, because you can literally see yourself as that chicken in the egg, and you're about to break through, but you don't know yet that the world that you're going to break into is going to be so much better than what you can imagine. And so
the chicken has no idea.
Has no idea. Just like the has no idea how it could become a butterfly and actually have wings and fly.
Right.
And this is how we are. This is how you are. If you're listening right now, in this moment, you may be finding yourself in that you say, there's something more to me. I know something wants to be born. And I hear that so often, that people say, I know there's something big that wants to come out. I just can't see it. And that's where I say, you're not supposed to see it. You're not supposed to know how it is, because if you can see it, it's in your egg.
It's limited. Limitation.
Yeah.
Even if you can visualize it, it's limiting because you're visualizing from your present paradigm.
Correct. So the breakthrough comes through you. It comes through your surrender. It comes from you saying, okay, I'm giving myself up. And here's the important part. Surrender isn't just giving yourself up to anything. No, because, other forces could take you over that want to play with you, and say, oh, great, there's a surrender. Like when people take drugs, they surrender to whatever force wants to take them over in that moment. That's dangerous, in my opinion. I mean, if you do a ceremony that's really guided, do it with a protection shield and with guidance. But if you're just taking drugs, you're giving your will away. And the same thing is with just surrendering to anything. So it's really important, the intention. I'm intending to surrender to my highest version, to my higher self coming through. Absolutely. When you intend that, then you set the course. But how that happens, that you're going to let happen. And that's that letting the breakthrough happen. As soon as I surrender and say, whatever needs to leave, whatever I need to understand and let go of, or not understand and let go of, I'm ready. Take it out. Right. I'm ready for my next step. That's where the breakthrough comes.
Right. We're about complete. There's so many things that we might have to ask you to come back so we can cover some more material. But one thing that's gripping people right now is fear. A lot of people are living in fear. They turn on their news. They're addicted to fear and worry. They don't even have to go to a horror movie anymore. They can actually just turn on their television, and there's pharmaceutical companies telling you about new diseases that are emerging. There's the lowest common denominator of the human experience, and wars and rumors of wars, and ice caps melting, and pollution, and rainforests dissolving, and people are afraid. I mean, the economy, mortgage rates, interest rates, inflation. You can just throw a dart and hit any of those things. So if I say to share a little bit how people can transcend, overcome fear, what would you say?
I think the fear, understanding where fear comes from helps, because we sometimes think when fear is there, that means we should listen to the fear. We should not move. Fear is a warning signal. And fear is only a warning signal when it comes to survival. And most of the time, we're not in survival problems anymore if we're listening to the news or if we're afraid of what's going to happen next. In that moment, our life isn't threatened, but we're creating a story by listening to that where our lower part of the brain, the survival instinct, thinks our survival is threatened. And then we don't act, or we act in the wrong way, because this is where the fear sits. It's at the lower part of the brain.
Reptilian, yeah.
Reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain is there just for survival. So unless you're in a fire or you're just drowning or something is actually taking your life right now, you should not listen to fear. But here is what needs to happen, because fear is sitting here. And if we're here, we're being locked into that survival instinct. And then we're basically locked in ego. That's where ego sits as well. And ego cannot go in a high vibration. Ego cannot take us out of that separation. It actually keeps us locked in that separation. And we're making decisions not from our higher selves, but from our lower selves, from our fearful survival instinct, right? So what I think is important to know is that we can actually shift to the frontal lobe. It's this short of a distance. So when you're here, and when you're in higher self mode, you're here. It's not long.
For those of you who are listening, and you're in your car, you're listening to this, you can't see her right now. She's touching the back of her head, like the nape of the neck, and then going to the frontal lobe at the front of your head. Yeah.
Thank you. And so the distance is very short. And what we can do in order to get into our higher self mode is literally a meditation that takes us from the back of the brain up to the frontal lobe. That is the best. It's super, super effective. And, by focusing on the third eye, when you do a meditation and you do it long enough, you'll actually get into that mode. Shall we do it right now for a moment?
Briefly? I think it's important because there's a great many people where they have normalized fear. So give them a moment.
So just visualize a light at the back of your skull where the neck starts. And this is where fear sits. And then you're breathing into that and breathing out. And your next breath, you take the breath there, but you draw it further all the way up to the third eye. Keep it there for a moment and then breathe out. Do that 2 more times, breathing into the lower part of the head. Draw it all the way up to the third eye. Hold it there and relax. Breathe out. 1 more time, breathing in there. Drawing it to the frontal lobe. Hold it there and breathe out. So if you were to do this for several minutes, you would literally not be able to hold that fear anymore, because now you're bringing energy to that frontal lobe. You can also do a practical thing, and I like to do that when I'm afraid of anything. I just take my fear by the hand and I say, okay, fear, you're super afraid. And I see the fear shivering. It's like, oh my God, we can't do it, right? And I'm like, we got this. Like, I have to speak it on stage, or I need to fly in an airplane, or whatever you may be afraid of. You take the fear by the hand and say, we got this. And we go anyway. Don't let fear stop you, because fear is not there to stop you. Fear is just a warning signal from the computer that's in the back of your brain. And that computer needs a software upgrade to go to the front of the brain, and you can walk with fear anyway.
Yes. Fear is an energy, so that if you take it by the hand and walk with it, you actually transmute that energy to higher frequencies instead of being a victim to it. Great exercise, great meditation. Well, tell people how they can find you. How can they get in touch with you?
Well, you can go to my website if you want to learn more about higher self-mastery, which is the tools to reach your higher self, where that involves managing your energy, managing manifestation, and then managing the contact with your higher self, you can just go to my website and go onto Higher Self Mastery Course.
Say, what's the name of the website? Say it.
Website, ariyalorenz.com. That is ARIYA as in zebra.com. And on there, there's Higher Self Mastery Course. That's the course you can learn more. And we actually have a special right now. I don't know when you're listening to this podcast, but there may be a special when you're listening to it. Right now, we have a really great special. If you want to join, we'll do a live cohort where you're going to be connected live with people. And there's also the free meditation there. If you go to start your journey, you get to that free 3-heart connection meditation. It's a 5-minute meditation that helps you to start.
Outstanding. And you said Ariya.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes call you Ariya.
And that's totally fine. I don't correct people because however they say it, it's music to me.
I like that.
Understand?
But we can go with Ari.
Either one.
Ariya, it's been more than pleasant speaking with you. And I know that those tuning in right now have received a lot from your words, but also the energy underneath your words. So I appreciate you. Thank you for being with us here. Take Back Your Mind, and have a beautiful and wonderful rest of your day there in Hawaii.
Thank you so much, Reverend Michael. So appreciate your work, appreciate your service to the world. You are such an important human being in our lives as well. My whole family listens to your services, and you are just such a beacon of light. And I'm so grateful and honored to be present here with you. And I bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you.
And over. God bless you.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Have a beautiful and wonderful day. And remember, you have the capacity to take back your own mind so it's not influenced by the world of circumstances and appearances. Have a beautiful day. Dynamic blessings to you. And this is a moment for something that I believe is fundamental to a way of living that provides the context for joy, inspiration, wisdom, guidance, spiritual direction, and that's meditation. Becoming still, becoming quiet, stopping from the world of effects, stopping from things that you have to do, to come to a deep and soulful remembrance as to who you really are. Not simply the son or daughter of parents, not merely what schools you went to, where you were born, the color of your skin, sexual orientation. All those things are wonderful and sweet, can be beautiful, but you're more than all of that. And so when you begin to practice the art and the science of meditation, you provide the context for insights and inner breakthroughs that move you beyond your limited perception into an awareness of that which is real and eternal, until it becomes the activity of your awareness. You actually become transformed by the renewing of your mind, not being conformed to the world. I invite you to practice with me for a few moments. Stop, have your feet placed on the ground, unless you're in a full lotus position. Have your hands facing upward as a sign of receptivity. Close the outer eye. And imagine for a moment that there's a beam of light emanating from the bottom of your feet to the core of the earth. You can use and re-enchant the imagination to see this beam of light moving from both feet to the very core of the earth plane. And become reminded that you are an earthling. A part of your identity is earthlingness. The earth has given you life. That is biological life. Now imagine as that beam of light, which is life, is at the core of the earth. Imagine that same beam is connected, coming from the base of your spine. It's coming up through the base of your spine, going through all your entire spinal column and hitting all of the chakras, all the way up to the top of your head, even a few, maybe 6 inches above the head, where your invisible 8th chakra is, and beyond. Reminding you that you are a spiritual being. Light, luminosity, awareness is your identity. And you're having this earthling incarnation. So you're giving yourself permission to have insights and revelations from all of the transformational knowledge that has occurred through human experience. It's in the newest sphere of the planet. And the light that's going to the center core of the earth is allowing you to catch all the insights and revelations that have happened by any human being that's in the newest sphere of this planet. And the light going up the spine, tearing it to a degree at 8 inches above the head and going beyond that, is allowing you to be available to every insight and revelation that you need to know beyond human experience, beyond any experience whatsoever, just total insight into that which is real and eternal. Be with this for a moment. You are catching transformational knowledge, inspiration, and insight. An event is happening in your awareness where you are remembering your real nature and your real being, and you are remembering that all of your legitimate needs are met right now. You are remembering, under the law of grace, that every single thing is working together for your good. You're feeling into this. Be still and know. Now become aware, as you put a slight smile on your face, that there's always something to be grateful for. There's more things to be grateful for than to be worried about. So allow yourself to expand your awareness around gratitude and thanksgiving and what I like to call dynamic appreciation. So that you're living from life's overflow, life's abundance. That is happening through and as you right now feel this. Oh, we give thanks for this and more than we can even imagine. And we allow it to be so. Therefore, we can say unequivocally, and so it is. Amen. Amen and Ashe. Slowly open the eyes and be aware that you are surrounded by so much love, so much life, so much beauty. Give yourself permission to feel it and to see it. Have a beautiful, wonderful day, afternoon, evening, week, month, lifetime. Peace and blessings. I appreciate your letters and emails that you've been sending in, but also the notes you're sending on the Instagram and on the website, thanking me for Take Back Your Mind. And I thank you for your support. As I've said before, if you want to support Take Back Your Mind, support the sponsors. The main sponsor is the Agape International Spiritual Center, agapelive.com. We have a Facebook presentation, an Instagram presentation, a YouTube presentation, and a website presentation. You can donate to the sponsor at agapelive.com. It's one way that you can donate. It supports the podcast. Second sponsor is Nutrarise.com. You go to Nutrarise.com, those 3 lines up at the top, you touch that line, and you'll get Adaptozen. Adaptozen are my products. The Super Green Superfood Greens and the vitamin D3, K2. Both extremely good for your health, your nutrition. You support the sponsors, you're supporting the podcast. Have a beautiful, and as I like to say, a bright day, luminous day, because you are a luminous being. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind, and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.